First of all, I must apologize for it's only me here. Take a Risøy, he was supposed to have been here as well, but he was occupied elsewhere. Well, that to be in our shipyard in Skagen. So originally we had planned for 40 minutes here, and I was supposed to have the last 10 minutes, so I think it'll be something like me doing the first 10 minutes, and then the last 30 minutes it'll just be very quiet here. But let me introduce myself. My name is Kent Damgaard. I'm a naval architect in Carstensen Shipyard in Skagen. We are a small shipyard, and being a small shipyard, that means many of us, we are getting a lot of titles. So apart from being a naval architect, I'm also a project manager and a chief designer, co-owner, and a director in the shipyard. So that's a long title. Anyway, this presentation we'll try to partition in 5 pieces. We're starting with an introduction, a brief history of the Carstensen Shipyard. I'll try to make it very brief because some of you have probably already heard it before. After that, I'll make a brief summary of the pelagic vessels we have built since '97, which we count as our new starting date, albeit the shipyard is very much older. Then we'll try to look at the very present pelagic fishing vessels we have, and then look at the future pelagic fishing vessels. This future pelagic fishing vessels I've split in 2 because we're living in 2013. We're not living in 2025, and we are most familiar with what is going on in these days, not what will happen in 10 years. Hello, Stig. The shipyard, Carstensen Shipyard, was founded in 1917. It's the 3rd generation who is the main owner of the shipyard and the managing director. He's, I said he's 3rd generation. His grandfather started the shipyard together with a cousin, and later on the father took over in '55. In 1960, the shipyard was among the first in Denmark to introduce steel-built, steel-hulled fishing vessels. And it's quite funny to see the relation to how it is today, because in 1960 we used the same methods as we do today. We at that time the hulls were bought abroad, not in Lithuania and Poland like we do today, but these were built and bought in Holland, and then towed to Skagen for fitting out. Started in 59, 60. Then there was a long period where there was very quiet with the new building market in Denmark, and the shipyard concentrated on repairs and even new buildings in foreign countries. In the time of 91 to 97, there was a government-aided program which we took part in, and we had reconstruction of vessels in Africa, various countries in Tanzania and Ghana, going over to the Far East, where we ended in Cambodia and Vietnam. We built the 2 new ferries in Cambodia, where it was like a finished kit that was put in containers in Skagen and then shipped out, and together with between 5 and 7 of our local guys from Skagen who traveled out acting as supervisors, and then local workers built the ferries out there. But then we started as I mentioned, like a new era in '97, where we delivered what we call the first Western Viking, our new building 374, for an Irish owner. This Irish owner had been a customer with us for several years for repairs of his existing vessel, and he chose us. He believed in us, and that was a major step for us to give us possibilities to present that we could actually build new buildings. So this boat was delivered in '97. We delivered 1 boat in '98. Then in '99 we delivered 2 vessels. 2000 we delivered 3 vessels, and ever since it's been going on between these 3, 4, up to 5 vessels a year. So that's why we're saying '97. That was like a starting point for us. As mentioned, this boat was new building 374, so obviously there's been a lot of new buildings before that, but had been a very slow period for maybe 10 years where there was no new buildings. Apart from the shipyard in Skagen, we also own, we have a daughter company up in Greenland called Nuuk Shipyard, where we are around from season to season, between 25 and 35 men working. This is 100% owned by Carstensen Shipyard, this shipyard. In 2003, we made a slight initiation to changing of the owner structure. Knud Carstensen is 62 years old, so we started to change a bit the ownership, and there was 5 of the executives from the management who bought a part of the shipyard, and we are continuing this slight takeover, but nothing dramatic, all going very, very smooth and very quiet. In 2007, we invested in a new dry dock. We are currently, as per 2013, we have around 250 men employed in total. We're the biggest employer in Skagen by far. And we have, except from the new buildings, we also have around 150 repairs per year. Conversions, lengthenings, etc. Our production facilities, which probably most of you know, we have the mentioned dry dock. We have the biggest slipway in Denmark, which can cater vessels up to 2,000 ton. Previously it was 3,000 ton, but when we built the dry dock, we downgraded the slipway to 2,000 ton. And then we have a number of other slipways. We have a painting shed of up to 40 meters, where we can lift approximately 750 ton. In general, we have tried to invest. We are not making a lot of money, but the money we are making, we are trying to reinvest into the shipyard. That means we're building new production facilities whenever we get a chance to, whenever we have the need. We've built together with the dry dock. We have 2 new fabrication sheds. We have just taken over, 2 years ago, we took over a defunct fish factory, which we have built into storage facilities. So we're trying to keep on top and keep developing the yard. The headline for this seminar was to be pelagic fishing. We took the liberty of adding the word pelagic fishing vessels, because pelagic fishing, that's in general, that's a very big subject, and we're probably not the right ones to talk about that. So, but we have a bit of knowledge about pelagic fishing vessels. So that is what we are concentrating on in this seminar here. Try to make a small overview of the pelagic fishing vessels we have built in the shipyard since this Western Viking in '97, and I think there was around 25 in total. You can see some of them, they are spanning in the size from 35 meters, silver delivered to Finnish owners, up to 81 meters, Christina E. and Trondheim Jøto delivered to Faroese and Norwegian owners. And they're currently, the building program, they're around 70 and 77 meter boats we're building just now. It's also interesting to see how it comes in waves. We had around 2003 and 2004, we had like a Irish wave where we delivered 6 vessels in a row for Irish owners, most of them for the port of Killebegs. Then we have had quite a few deliveries, obviously, for Denmark. We have one under construction for Sweden, Denmark. But apart from that, you could say we are in a Norwegian wave, where we have quite a few Norwegian deliveries and quite a few Norwegian boats on order. Our production plan for the next couple of years is that we have a 55-meter pelagic boat, combined pelagic and whitefish boat, Asbjørn Sælspande. She's on trials yesterday, and she's on trials today, and will be delivered in the next 10 days or so. After that, we have a 70-meter combined purser trawler, Hero Hauf, for Norwegian owners, also for delivery at the end of the year. The Astrid for local Swedish owners, where we are waiting for the hull, which is supposed to turn up in November. And then she'll be ready 5 months after that. Then during the summer holidays, we got orders for 2 Norwegian boats, a 70-meter boat called the Haugegud, which will be virtually a sister ship to the Astrid. and a 77-meter boat called the Kværnøy. Both of these boats, they are under those owners, they have 2 vessels, and in Norway they have rules. They have a limit. They can have a certain amount of quota, and they're not allowed to buy any more quota or aggregate any more quota onto one vessel. But if the same owner owns 2 vessels, they are allowed, if they are ordering a new building, they are allowed to fish both quotas on one boat in a period of 2 years. So that's why they're not really stressed to get these boats. They want to keep these boats they have now fishing. This one boat they have fishing the 2 quotas for 2 years to optimize obviously the earning potential and the lower running cost with only having one vessel. So that's why these 2 latest ones, they're only for delivery in middle of 2015. I'll keep on making advertisement for the shipyard here because we think we are quite at the forefront when it comes to pelagic. And this is a brief list of the boats that's currently on order, as far as I can see, for the northern hemisphere here in the pelagic, and there's something like 15 boats where we have the 5 in our. I think there was 14. So we around our market share is between 35 and 40%. And what is most interesting is there's one shipyard that has 2. Except from that, so we are by far the biggest player in this particular field. And we think it's because we are delivering some good products, and we think it's because we are delivering a lot of boats. So we are getting a continuously development. Every owner is adding something to our knowledge. So the next boat is always the best one. We are, as it can be seen here, especially Norwegian owners, they have had a brief spell with Turkey. There's a few boats ordered in Turkey, and that is of course a bit of a challenge for us because the Turkish price level is a bit lower than the Danish. But we hope there's other things that can turn the wheel the other way for us. It's interesting to note that there's been one boat delivered from Turkey, one pelagic fishing boat to Turkey for the Norwegian harbor of Austevoll, and that was delivered half a year ago. But what is interesting is the Haugegud that we got order for is for the same harbor. So we hope that is an indication that now they have seen what can come out of Turkey, but still they chose to build in Denmark. In June we delivered the Rogne, a 70-meter pelagic boat. We'll see 69.9 meters, just below the 70-meter rule to avoid the pilot for running inside the coastline in Norway. That's a general something that the Norwegian owners are looking at, trying to keep below the 70 meters to avoid this pilot, which is extra cost and which is even more of an inconvenience to have a pilot on board. As mentioned, we have the Asbjørn Sailspanner. This photo is not very sharp, but if it's not sharp, it's new at least, because it was taken yesterday when the boat was on trials. She's a pelagic boat, but she's also a whitefish boat. She's in fact a very special boat. In Norway they had a rule saying the coastal fishing vessels, they are supposed to be below 90 foot, 27 meters. That rule was made defunct 3-4 years ago, and now the only limit is 500 cubic meters in the fish hold. So this vessel here is 55 meters by 12.8 and still just 500 cubic meters. But anybody coming on board, they'll see that there's not 1 inch or 1 meter too much space anywhere. She's got 6 cargo holds, which the 4 of them can double as RSW tanks and freezer holds. And she can run with live fish. And then on top of that, there's on the tween deck, there's a full fish factory with freezing plate freezers, 30 ton a day, and then heading and gutting machines. So she's a very complicated vessel. The Hero we have for outfitting in Skagen at the moment. She'll be delivered in December 2013. The Astrid, which is a hull sister to the Hero, as mentioned, we are waiting for the hull. We are assuming delivery in April next year. the Haugegut. We got this order during the holidays, and she's scheduled for delivery in April 2015. And then the latest one, that's the Kværnøy, 77 meters. We can talk a bit about that one, because that's a bit special, being she's a pure pelagic vessel, a pure RSW trawler. The owners, they had a big, relatively big vessel they sold for Faroes. She was 10 years old. She was a combined freezer and RSW boat. But this time the owners, they decided they want a straightforward RSW boat. Only tanks, no freezing, no plate freezers or anything. Then we come to what you probably have been waiting for, which is maybe a bit more interesting than all this talk about history in the shipyard and our ships, is that the future pelagic fishing vessel. Again, we have added this word fishing vessel because that is what we know a bit about. And it was added that this should be the future vessel for Sweden. And we've also added, like I mentioned, this is for the closest future, for the future in 2014, 15 and 16. We have I have some small thoughts about what will be in 2025, but this is based on the knowledge we have today and the current technologies. Like, this is a boat that can be built straightforward and straight away now without anything uncertain. In order to determine what kind of boat we should do, it can be a 25-meter boat, it can be a 30-meter boat, it can be a 50. That is a very wide subject. But we have had a discussion with some Swedish owners, some Danish owners, and it seems like that can be an interest in these around 50 meters. So this is what this presentation will be concentrating on. We need to determine exactly what size of boat it should be, what shape should the boat have. And then the biggest challenge of all is the number 2 line, that's the economy. Because regardless what we think, it always comes down to economy. It's economy of building the boat. How much can we pay for a boat? How much is the running cost? How much is this and that? It always comes down to money, and that is just the way it is in today's world. We can have a lot of ideas about the size. We can have a lot of ideas about fancy engines and all that, but it has to come down to a bottom figure. So this is something that we are very focused on in all projects we are making. In all discussions we have with owners, it always comes down to money. And then what we can do within the amount of money we have available. Safety and comfort, that is also an issue. But the boats being built today, they have a lot of comfort. There's not really any huge changes to make there. We have a very low noise level. In Denmark, we have requirements that we should be below 55 decibels, or at least that's what they're suggesting, and then maximum 60 decibels. In most of our new buildings, the noise level is between coming down to 50 decibels and up to 55 decibels. So there's a lot of comfort in these boats already. So it's not here we can make a big change. Environment, nobody is allowed to make a presentation like this without mentioning the environment. And of course we are very concerned about the environment, and we want to do as much good for the environment as we can. We think that one of the ways to do that is to make things more efficient. In trying to find the ideal shape and the size, we need to look at the rules a bit. In Sweden you have a rule saying 50 meters overall length. After that you're getting some problems with tickets and crewing, etc. In Denmark we have a limit with 45 meters perpendicular. And actually the two figures are very close to each other. So to make a boat of 50 meters overall and 45 meter perpendicular, that suits very good. So that was quite easy to determine that we need to be in that area, certainly not anything bigger. Then the biggest challenge was to discuss the loading capacity. How much do we want to sail with? And again, that is without having anything specific. You need to look at the service profile of the boat. You need to look at the available quotas. because some boats, some owners, they have quotas for industrial fishing, some have for more like mackerel and herring pelagic fishing. So again, that'll be depending on what is what the quota are available. In these studies we have made here, we have taken a lot into account that it's like for industrial fishing. There will probably be herring and mackerel fishing as well, but industrial fishing, it'll be running to the Baltic and fishing spreads. It'll be industrial fishing in the North Sea, but industrial fishing will be a big part of it. Every time we are making a new project, a new building, we are making a service profile. I know the figures are very small, you probably cannot read them, but because it's when a propeller designer or an engine manufacturer need to make a propeller for a ferry, it's very easy to determine how the service profile is, back and forth. But to make a service profile of a fishing boat, that is much more complicated, because it's not just straightforward. So what we have done, we have tried to make it partition in species. We have here, this is for a Danish boat, we have first columns here is the sand eel fishing. We are making a steaming out, we are fishing, researching, and steaming in, etc., and estimating how much kilowatt we are using for that, and in total estimating 11 trips per year for that fishing. Then the next we have horse mackerel, then we have herring and mackerel, and then miscellaneous species. And by that, combining all these information, we can get an idea how much, first of all, obviously how much fuel the boat is burning, but also what is important for the boat. Is it towing capability, or is it free steaming? And that is actually very interesting, because this boat here, that is a trawler, pure pelagic trawler, not a purser, a straight trawler. And the towing time of that boat is something like 15% of the total running time. And that is we were a bit surprised to see that. We knew there's a lot of sailing back and forth, but to find out that the maximum towing time is maybe 15 to 20%, that is a new experience, because you would think you should be optimized for bollard pull, but that's not really what we should look at for the propeller. It's the steaming time which is the most. In order to determine the loading capacity of this project, we have our 50-meter boat again. Coming back to this, we try to make two models, because it's not a problem to make a 50-meter boat which can load 2,000 tons. It's just a question of making it wide enough. But it comes to limit to where you cannot push it through the water. So we made two models. We took a model of 11.2 meters. It could have been 11, it could have been whatever, but 11.2 meters we started with. Then we took that boat, made it 2 meters wider. So that meant we had two shapes, one with a 1,000-ton loading capacity and one with 1,300 ton. And then we tried to make a model of that, a computerized model, like here. This is what we use today, computerized fluid dynamics. Instead of building a model and make model test, and that, it's a lot easier to make the changes in a computer. So we made these two models in a computer and tried to see what is the resistance, what is the difference in resistance. We all think that the more beamy boats will be harder to push through the water, and obviously she will be, but how much is the difference? Is it 50% or 70% or 5%? This is what we get out of the model. See how the wave pattern is, and we get the actual resistance calculated. These are the results of these two models. It's probably a bit difficult to see, but what is interesting is here, it's these two curves here, where we made two loading scenarios. One where the boat was empty, like steaming to the fishing grounds, and one was she was fully loaded. And this is the beamier boat, and as you can see, when she's fully loaded, she's needing more power than the more slimmer boat with a lesser capacity. And that obviously that's no surprise to anybody. But what was interesting to see is how much the difference was. And here it's around 10%. These two lines, which looks like one line, that's when the two hulls are steaming out of the harbor, and that's actually the same resistance, either 11 or 13 meters. The reason being that the 13 meters will be slightly lighter on the water. So there's not really any difference there. So these figures we found to be very interesting. We could put them in our small spreadsheet here. These are very simple figures. We started with a slimmer boat. We say when we're steaming out, this is like, for instance, a fishing trip to the Baltic. Steaming out, 24 hours steaming, 150 liters per hour. Fishing 5 days, 144 hours times 200 liters per hour. Steaming home, 24 hours again, going up to the 200 liters per hour. Blah, blah, blah. In total, times 5 Danish kroners per liter, it's 186,000 in fuel for a trip. This can vary. We can put the figures higher or lower. Again, the idea is to compare the two shapes. Same we did with a wider hull. We said steaming out, even though that the figures showed that it had the same resistance, we added 10%, just to be a bit conservative. We added 10%. So instead of 150 liters per hour, we used 165. Fishing, the fishing time, the towing time, that'll be the same fuel consumption, because there's not much steaming. It'll be a question of the size of the propeller, and they'll be identical on the two boats. So we use the same figures here. Steaming home, instead of the 10%, which the figure showed, we added 20%. That means instead of steaming at 200 liters, we are steaming at 240 on the heavier hull. So summary is that we're using 192,000 kroners instead of 186. So 6,000 kroners more for a trip where you're carrying 300 ton more. So it doesn't take any genius to find out what is the most clever way to do it. Because on top of that, the difference is also that if we have a catch, a total available quota of 5,000 ton, you need 5 trips on the slimmer hull, but on the wider hull you need 4 trips, roughly. Obviously there'll be some fishing time in difference, but the steaming time will save a full trip. So looking at these figures, it should be quite obvious that the 13.2 is a better choice than the 11.2. Again, we had the same seminar just an hour ago, and the question was, what is the building? Because I was just preaching before that it's always the building cost, it's the cost. What is the price difference between building a 11 meter wide boat and a 13 meter? And that's, in my opinion, that's marginal. You'll be speaking about maybe 1 million in difference. We have the fuel economy. This we did with the CFD calculations here. That was only to show the difference between the two shapes. Now, after that, when it's decided to go for the 13 meter hull, then that should be optimized, and there'll be another running with the CFD and probably ending with a model tank test just to confirm the CFD calculations. So it's important to get an optimized hull shape. Again, this is something everybody knows in the business. Nobody's using the wrong hull shapes, certainly not deliberately. So, but time should be spent on optimizing that. Also, the propulsion plant is very important to get optimized. We are suggesting for this project here, we're suggesting 2,000 kilowatts main engine. Like I said in the previous seminar, I know that'll sound very, that'll take a bit of discussion with especially Swedish owners. Swedish owners have always wanted big engines. I remember when I was small, my father, he was always telling me about the fishing vessel from Årstol with the 1100 horsepower engines and 1300 horsepower engines. And the Swedish fishermen has always been in the forefront with bigger engines and more power. But I think I'll challenge you and say that that's wrong in these days. I think 2,000 kilowatts is enough. What do you need the power for? You need it for towing. You don't necessarily, it's not important whether you're steaming 9.5 or 10. At least when it comes to looking at the end result and on your annual report, the bottom figure, at the end of the day, you know how much fish you can catch. You all have a quota. So the question is how cheap you can catch your quota. And even with a 2,000 kilowatts, with an optimized propeller, with a large propeller, with a big reduction down to 125 revs on the propeller, we can get nearly 44 ton of bollard pull, which is probably 2,000 kilowatts. Even 10 years ago, you'll probably only gained less than 35 ton. So things has been optimized, and there'll be plenty power in the 2,000 kilowatts. That's my opinion anyway. The main engines, there's also a development on the main engines. The last two orders we got, that'll be with a new main engine with common rail, which is supposed to have a considerably less fuel consumption than the normal type of engines. Again, considerably. We're not speaking about 20% or 30%. We're speaking about 2% and 3%. But again, that's probably something of the future. All new cars with diesel engines, they all have common rail, so I'm sure it'll come to the marine engines as well. We have a big consumer in general on the new fishing boats. That's all the electricity on board. We have big cooling plants, we have hydraulic plants, etc., etc. And what we have frequency converters at all the major consumers today, simply to reduce the power used. Then we are going a bit back in time. Now we start to fit the central heating in the boats again. We have all been so happy about having electric heaters. It's so easy with just a plug. But now we are going 20 years back in time again and start to fit central heating. Again, that's simply a question of running costs. I'm sure quite a few owners, you'll know that even having heating on a boat, you'll easily spend 50 kilowatts, 60 kilowatts power, electrical power, on just keeping heating on the boat. And when you start to aggregate that for maybe 6 months, a year, there's a lot of money being spent on the power, and we say, okay, we have an engine running anyway, but that's not the way it is. It's still costing money to generate these 50, 60 kilowatts. That's why the latest ones, they are fitted with a central heating, where we're taking use of the cooling water from the main engine. We have not gone so far that we have used it from the exhaust boiler. That could be done, but that's a bit more complicated, and again, more expensive to build the boat. The central heating, that's, you're speaking about 1 million kroner to fit that onto a boat, but that'll be saved in 3 years' time. That'll be paid back. We have on the hydraulic system, the smaller boats, they've had it for years and years. They have variable pumps, not fixed displacement, but variable pumps and load sense, and that's something that's coming into the bigger boats as well now. The Astrid should be fitted with variable pumps, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, but for sure they'll be helping with the hydraulic power to not to be spent, not to be wasted too much. Then we have the anti-fouling and the bottom paint. That's also, again, that's something that's been known for years, but there's quite a lot of development in that area at the moment. We have various alternatives for the propulsion plant. For this vessel, we have suggested a traditional plant, a main engine, a gearbox, and a shaft alternator, and a propeller, and that's it. There's a lot of alternatives. We can fit diesel electric, but again, for diesel electric, that will take a special service profile. That's something that's maybe more suited for a ferry or for an offshore vessel, but for these boats with a lot of running and a lot of towing and steaming, and there's not really any point in diesel electric, because regardless, the fact is diesel electric, there is a power loss of around 10%, and that cannot be gained anywhere. Then we have the hybrid solutions like that. Asbjørn Selsman I showed you, that has a hybrid plant. She has the possibility of running diesel electric. She can run a power take in to the propeller using the shaft alternator as an electric motor, etc. But again, the question is, what can be gained? If there's no gain in it, there's no point in fitting it. And for this particular vessel, because it comes down to the question of cost of the vessel, for this vessel, the straightforward propulsion plant seems to be the right choice. We have some of the boats, we have 2-speed gearboxes. Several years ago, there was we are consequently using the term 2-speed gearboxes. 10 years ago, we had 2-step gearboxes. where we could change the revs on the main engine. But the 2-speed, that's actually the revolutions on the propeller we are changing. So on the Asbjørn Cellspanner, for instance, we have a 2-speed gearbox. The normal propeller speed is 140, but in step 2, she can go down to 105 RPM on the propeller. And that can be a considerable fuel saving if you're running at reduced power on the main engine. But again, when we have the floating frequency, which allows the main engine to be reduced and also the propeller speed to reduce, the gain with the 2-speed gearbox can be discussed. It's not really a lot. The 50 to 60 floating frequency is something we are fitting to all boats today. That means that all the electrical power is 60 hertz, and when running on the main engine 800 revs, you can float it down to 670 revs, where you'll get 50 hertz. So that's indeed very fuel efficient. And again, like written here, we chose the traditional plant, a straightforward propulsion plant for this vessel here. Economy. Maintenance economy is also a very important subject when building a new boat. That boat should be able to last for years. It should be easy to keep. It should be easy to paint. It should be easy to wash. And you should not start to rebuild the boat after a few years because of poor materials. We have, together with Norwegian owners, we've sort of, in the quietness, we have introduced something we call clean design. And that is like the deck arrangements. We are trying to keep clear of pipes. We are trying to make not too many deck beams. We are cleaning it's maybe easier shown here on this photo here. All the deck beams here are covered with a plate, so it's very easy to paint everything. It's very easy to keep clean. There's not a hydraulic pipe to be seen on this boat here, because in the design it's been thought how we can route the pipe so it will not clutter the deck. And that is something that's been, especially Norwegian owners, they have appreciated this very much, and they can see it on the new boats. They also compared with new boats built elsewhere, that we have a considerably edge compared to our competitors here. And again, that is something that will be helping them in the future. Crew economy. We need a straightforward design. Stern pumping. This was probably better mentioning somewhere else in Sweden than in Sweden. You have been stern pumping for 20 years, so there's no news to you here. But for sure, that helps saving on the crew and makes things more safe for the crew. We need remote controls for instance, on RSW systems, in order to keep the crew cost down. We don't want to run a boat like this with 3 men as a crew, but there's no need to have 10 men of a crew anyway. Unmanned engine room, E0, class notation E0, is also to help to reduce the crew. And obviously we have this with below 50 meters and below 45 meters to reduce the crew costs. The carrying capacity could also have an influence on the crew cost, because if we can reduce the number of fishing trips, we can also maybe reduce the crew costs. Like mentioned, there's hardly any point in discussing the thing with comfort. All new boats, they have plenty comfort, as far as I see it anyway. This is from one of our latest deliveries, and so I don't think that's an issue as such. Environment was mentioned, fuel efficiency. By doing all these things that we are mentioning with fuel efficiency, we are also being environmental friendly. That is a definite fact. We can discuss LNG as a propulsion fluid. So far, well, I would say, like, we are concentrating on 2013, 14, and 15, and so far it's not proven itself. It's not, in my opinion, it's not an issue for a fishing vessel today. Things may be different in 10 years' time, but today it's not an issue. Paint, obviously, the bottom paint needs to be environmental friendly. We have a scrubber up in Norway. They have these NOx costs, and whether they'll come to Sweden, whether they'll come to Denmark, that's still a bit of uncertainties about. And the quality of the boat, obviously, we cannot have a boat, build a boat with such a poor quality that it needs to be scrapped after 10, 20 years. Then we are damaging the environment as well. So the summary of what these studies we have made is that this future vessel for Sweden, again in the next few years, that should be 49 meters overall, below 45 meters perpendicular, and then we're suggesting 13.2 meters of beam. We're suggesting 1,300 cubic meters. And obviously it needs to have an optimized hull and propulsion plant. We'll need to make an effort to make the design so the maintenance costs will be kept at a very low level. Crew safety will need to be an issue. And then again, the biggest challenge of all, the price level. Obviously, everybody knows that we all want to build the boat as cheap as possible. Ideally, in an ideal world, we would like to build this boat for 80 million, because then I'm sure there'll be quite a few customers. But realistically, we're working on a price level around 100 million Danish kroner for a boat like that. And I think, personally, looking at the running cost on the older boats, I think there'll be quite a few owners that could see that could still see a profit in doing this. To make a lower price, then you'll need a smaller boat, then you'll need to sacrifice some of the things. Building a boat this size here, they'll have a market, also an after-sales market. Then I'll spend 5 minutes on this here, 2025. As mentioned, we are most based in 2013. That's what we know a bit about. We cannot spend a lot of time on guessing what will happen. First of all, I must maybe apologize a bit for making these. There's probably copyright on some of these. These are more like illustrations of what has been done in the colleagues which has developed some designs. This is the Norske Veritas. For some reason, they have found out. They thought that they were good at designing boats. We thought that they were surveyors, but obviously they want to compete with the rest of us. Maybe they also want to build the boats. But anyway, they have made a design for a so-called catchy boat. And yeah, that's it. Wärtsilä, they made a new design up in Trondheim, and they can probably present that much better. But there was one thing, the reason why I just took it, there was one thing I found a bit interesting on it, and that is the shape of it. Because we are looking at, we are discussing about the hull shape, etc., etc. But all cars, look how much studies there's going into making aerodynamics on these. On a boat, sailing and steaming, there'll also be a resistance due to the wind and to the superstructure. So that's probably something in the future that'll need to be looked a bit more into, how much we can gain by smoothing the lines. But it'll probably take a bit of a change up in our heads to get the boats to look like that. But for sure, they probably have a point there. No doubt about that. And this was a new one I saw in the Skibsreview, a new design company who's made this flash and fancy seismic vessel. And but again, this is not what we're doing. We're concentrating on this more like basic and down-to-earth project that I've just described. But if we can look at what can we expect in the future, we can expect more efficiency on the hull. But again, you can only come so far. How much more efficient can it be? At the end of the day, you have a length, you have a breadth, and there's not really that much more to do. You can make developments, but you cannot gain 20%. That'll be out of the question. But you can. But where there can be efficiency gained, that'll certainly be on the main engines, on the propellers. There's still a long way to go there. Anti-fouling bottom paint will also be. There's a lot of developments. Electric winches. That is something I personally believe in. I've said that I think I said 10 years ago that in 10 years all new boats will have electric winches. So we'll try to say it again. In 10 years all new boats will have electric winches. Everything else is getting electric. The only challenge is on a pelagic boat, electric winches is so far it's not really any gain. For a trawler or whitefish boat continuously trawling and trawling, there is a gain in electric winches. There's no question. but it'll probably come. Hybrid propulsion, will it come or will it not in the future? That's a bit up into the air. Cooling plants, we have not discussed on the project because these things are pretty standard today. They are optimized and they are pretty good and all that. But again, there's a development going on at the moment. There's been some tests made. I believe there's one boat up in Norway with CO2 plant, which is supposed to be more efficient than the ammonia plants. So that's one of the areas there'll probably be some development in the future also. So that was a brief ideas about 2025. I think that's just about what I had to tell you about how we look at the future fishing vessels. Is there any comments or questions? You're more than welcome.
Vad kalkylerar du med fart på den båten? Hade den med 2000 kilowatt? Och 50 gånger 13 och 20?
Topfarten?
Ja.
Ja, men den vil ligge omkring 14,8.
Hur stor propeller är det?
3,80 meter.
380?
Ja. Topfart, det er jo ikke så vældig interessant, kan man sige, men det giver naturligvis et udtryk for, hvor effektivt sit anlæg det er. Men selv de her store norske både, hvor vi læser i bladene, at de sejler 17, og de sejler 18, og dit og dat. Men nu om dagen har vi jo alle sammen AIS, så vi kan følge lidt, hvad der sker. Og det er yderst sjældent, man ser en båd, der sejler 15 knop. De ligger alle sammen på 11 knop. Det er jo ligesom der, det er interessant. Så det er egentlig det, og det giver de her CFD, de giver en større mulighed for at gå ind og optimere, vurdere, hvor er det, vi skal optimere henne. Det er ikke det samme skrov, som er optimeret til 18 knop, som den, der er optimeret til 12 knop. Det er ikke samme skrov. Så vi koncentrerer os meget mere i det område fra 12 til 14, end vi gør på toppen.
Vad är det för djupgång till huvudäck på?
Ja, altså fuld laste, der ligger den på 7,20 meter. Det er klart, det er jo en parameter, som er vigtig også. Og der kan man så diskutere. Nu har vi valgt 3,80 meter propel. Det var for ligesom at gøre det lidt ekstremt. Det kan godt være, at man skal ind og sige, at vi kan ikke acceptere 7,20 meter. Vi skal ned på 7 meter, vi skal ned på 6,80 meter eller et eller andet. Så må man ind og genvurdere tingene. Det er sådan set den eneste rigtige begrænsning med hensyn til propellerstørrelse. Jamen, så vil jeg sige tak for mig. Tak for nu.